Mother dies in labor and baby clings to her. Then, the unthinkable happens. When Samantha Klopp was trying to give birth to her second baby, things started going wrong. Doctors rushed her to the operation room as soon as she went into labor, so they could try to rescue both her and the baby. Her spouse did something amazing when it looked like there was no more hope. When Craig and Samantha found out they were going to have their second child, they were overjoyed. Their plan to have a child had been in the works for at least a year. Their son, John, had asked very specifically for a younger brother. Samantha asked the doctor not to tell them the baby's gender, even though it could be found during the scan. The consultant then wrote down the answer on a piece of paper and gave it to Samantha's friend, who is planning a small get-together for family and friends. The news was shared between sweets and a cake. Everyone was happy when purple and pink balloons fell from the sky and stuck to the flat ceiling, which meant there was a girl. But Craig cried the hardest, as he realized his dream was coming true. The soon-to-be dad, for a second time, kissed his wife and son. It warmed my heart to see how excited the dad was for his daughter to come home. As a Red Sox fan, he then said, "I'm going to teach her to play basketball too." This made everyone in the room laugh. Samantha and Craig met when they were in college. He was accepted to a good university because he could hit the ball well and was a regional winner when he was 16. Because of a shoulder problem, he couldn't play professionally, but he did play for his college team. He always said that his best athletic achievement was at practice on campus. After hitting a ball into the sky, Craig saw Samantha, a pretty girl he had never seen around that area. There was a friend with her. Craig told Samantha, "That was the best hit of my life because it brought me you," as they said their vows in front of everyone. A year later, Samantha's graduation was simple and classy. Craig gave up his bat for a computer so he could become an engineer, but he still liked basketball. The birth of his son, John, brought him the most happiness in his life. John was already hitting balls with his dad when he was 3 years old. Craig and Samantha didn't think their son would be as agile as his dad. It was fun to throw balls around the yard with him, and he loved taking him to Red Sox games. When Craig and John were expecting a girl, they would lay next to Samantha in bed and listen to the baby move and kick. It looked like everything was going to be okay, but things would change dramatically for the family. As the due date got closer, Craig and Samantha bought more things for the baby's comfort. The baby's room was filled with a crib, bright clothes, toys, and lots of diapers. 10 days from now, the arrival date was set. Samantha was calm because she knew it was going to happen because she had been through this before. But in the second to last week, something unexpected happened. When Samantha woke up, she felt a small contraction. As long as it didn't look too bad, she and her husband went to the hospital without much worry. They wanted to make sure that everything was well, but while they were at the doctor's office, the contractions got stronger and the water broke. Things began to go badly for the woman at this point. She felt sick and dizzy. She had this happen the first time she gave birth, but she thought it wouldn't be a big deal this time. However, Samantha was wrong. A short time later, she passed out in front of the doctor. Craig was scared. He had never seen his wife in that state before, and the focus of the basketball player couldn't have set him up for it. "What's going on?" he would ask the shocked team. "What does she have?" But they did not answer. Her blood pressure dipped to 0, and her heart rate slowed down. As the doctor and the medics tried to figure out what was wrong, Samantha turned blue and looked like she was having trouble breathing. Soon, her body was on top of a bed, wired to different machines that kept an eye on her health and the health of the baby she was carrying. What was wrong was that the baby's vital signs started to get worse as well. Craig had a chill go down his back. He was speechless and couldn't do anything. The medical team finally understood that they needed to act quickly and did more tests. Samantha had an amniotic fluid embolism, which is a rare allergic response that can happen when amniotic fluids get into the bloodstream of the mother. The heart and lungs stopped working because of this. The woman was moved to a different part of the maternity unit, which was closer to the area where the surgery would happen. The nurses wouldn't let Craig in. He said he needed to devote time with his daughter and wife. Still, the nurses told him that things were very bad and that the doctors needed to focus because she might not make it. Samantha couldn't be the same if she lived. Being Craig, hearing that made him feel like the entire world was going to crash over him. He was ready to hit the wall so hard in the hallway of the maternity ward that they hurt. He instead got down on his knees and leaned his head against the wall, talking to himself in a quiet voice. It was hard for people to tell if he was praying or just hoping for the best, but it was a very painful scene to watch. It was important for Craig to be strong because he was about to lose his wife. Samantha's situation got worse in the surgery room, and no matter what the doctors did, the worst could happen. The doctor said Samantha was dead at 10:20 a.m. In spite of the fact that everything was terrible, there was no time to be sad. The group was still set on saving the child. On the other hand, Craig was outside walking back and forth. It was too much for him. The couple had been getting ready for the baby's coming for months, dreaming about what family life would be like and picturing the baby's face. They had not even picked a name yet. They were going to name their daughter after seeing her. He had to say goodbye to the woman he had met by chance at a basketball game 10 years earlier. He was now alone. Craig was scared and couldn't do anything. He was shocked because that was the first time something like this had ever happened to him. Still, he tried not to lose his temper. His daughter was still fighting, and he wasn't going to give up even if it meant there was a 1% chance that things could get better. He wouldn't give up on his wife though. What Craig did next was the only thing he knew how to do. In the most honest and painful question of his life, he got down on one knee and said, "I know this is more than I can take, and maybe it's more than I can ask. That could mean that everything is happening for a reason. All I ask is that you let me hug my wife one more time," Craig said from the floor of the hallway. He was in terrible need. After that, he got up and called his family and friends, telling them to come to the maternity ward right away. Once everyone was in the waiting room, they held hands. They told Samantha and the baby again how much they hoped and prayed for them. People quickly shared the pleas, and soon, people who didn't even know Samantha or Craig showed their support for the family and hoped for the best. After prayers, everyone sat in an area to wait for better news. Doctors were trying one last frantic CPR on Samantha while she was still in the surgery room. The girl was saved by the child's care team, which is good news. She cried when she was born, but what was more important was that she was taken away from her mother and would live. Even though they won, it wasn't clear if the mother could comfort the baby on her first day of life. Craig held his daughter and cried and laughed at the same time. In both good and bad ways, the feeling was hard to describe. He had heard that these strange experiences can mess with your mind and feelings, but he didn't understand what they meant or how hard they were to explain until now. Once he saw the girl for the first time, he knew right away what name to give her. This is what you'd call her, Grace. Being happy with Grace was enough for Craig, but the thought of losing his wife made him sad. Then, luck took a chance on the former athlete's hope. According to the doctor, Samantha had responded to the last try to revive her. She was at least breathing again, even if her heart rate stayed low. As for what happened, no one knew, but the doctor promised to do anything to get the woman stable again. Craig hugged his friends and family. The doctors in the ICU did everything they could to keep Samantha alive after she was moved there. There was, however, a drop in her vital signs again. Samantha's brother, who is a surgeon, came to the hospital and asked to see her medical papers. The risks were high, and he knew it was a bad idea. But he found out that his sister was having a heart attack. He went into the waiting room and told everyone what was going on. After taking a look at his new daughter, Craig got up and chose to go see his wife in the ICU. The engineer walked up to Samantha and took her hand while the doctors and nurses looked at the charts, watched the situation on the screen through graphs, and gave her medicine. "I love you always. Grace is already here with me, and she is beautiful and perfect. if you're still strong enough, please fight. Craig was sure that his wife's health would get better, but Samantha's did not. Even though 2 blood transfusions were done, the case was still considered critical. Every beat of her heart made her heart fail, and her body got less and less blood. In the end, her lungs stopped working, and she needed machines to help her breathe. Samantha was out cold and not awake. She could have died at any time, but one of the doctors saw something that no one else had seen. While going over one of the tests again and taking a look at the patient, he saw that one of the organs had been cut by accident and was still bleeding even though no one was paying attention to it. Then, she was wheeled into the surgery room of another hospital just as she was about to be pronounced dead for a second time. A machine for extracorporeal membrane resuscitation was inside it. The heart and lungs would be able to work again after this. Samantha's level of sedation was also lowered until she woke up so that they could check how well her nervous system was working. When Craig walked back into the room, he saw the woman breathing again. He was right next to her. "Hi, my love," he said as he took her hand. Samantha smiled back, even though she was confused and upset. After everything she'd been through, the doctors didn't expect her to respond in that way. The nerves in her body were working better than normal, and her brain wasn't dead. At that point, Craig understood there was a way to save Samantha for good. The doctors then told her that they were going to try a new surgery on her and that the anesthesia would make her fall asleep soon. Craig ran over to her bed and put Grace on Samantha's lap for the first time. This gave Samantha a chance to touch her daughter for the first time. "She's called Grace, my love. Our healthy daughter has come. We will be ready for you when you wake up," Craig yelled, his voice choked with emotion. Samantha was weak, but her face changed a lot. Seeing and touching her daughter seemed to wake up something inside the woman and make her stronger again. Samantha was going to do anything to stay alive. As soon as the anesthesiologist gave Samantha the medicine, she fell back asleep. Craig only had to wait and watch over Grace. John didn't know that his mother was in such jeopardy while he was with his grandparents. Many of Craig's friends and family said that the whole thing was the hardest test of faith and strength they had ever been through. Samantha's condition suddenly got better after the surgery was finally over. At this point, the doctors were tired and confused. How could the body of a woman go through both death and birth? Craig cried tears of joy. He was still shaking so much that he almost was unable to share with his parents the good news on the phone. They could now bring Grace's brother with them to the maternity ward to meet her. After 24 hours, Samantha was able to breathe regularly again after the ventilator was taken away. They had to wait for hours before Craig, John, and little Grace could talk to her. That woman had been through a lot, but she couldn't remember much of it. She wished to hold her daughter in her hands one more time, even though she was weak and had a heavy head. Craig put the child in her lap to help her. Tears came from Samantha's eyes when Grace opened her eyes and saw her mother for the first time. Craig stretched out next to his wife and thanked God in a quiet voice. His most loved people were safe and around him.